My part is to explain the summary of the scenario as well as include how did the scenario demonstrate and violates the principles we have tackled in the class. Okay, so let us begin. The scenario was that Mr. Santiago teaches a biology class. The way he assessed his class was by administering a 50 items multiple choice test at the end of every unit, as well as determine the students' final grades based on the results of their scores. His assessment focused only to the factual recall of the students, which requires only cognitive domain and a paper and pencil test. It is more likely a traditional approach and not holistic or hands-on approach. We have addressed on our paper how did the scenario demonstrate some principles of assessment such as the summative assessment and the criterion reference assessment, as well as how it violates some of the principles of assessment, including the validity of the assessment given by Mr. Santiago, the reliability, authenticity, as well as the application of the required knowledge, which we all know that in biology class, the application of knowledge plays an important role in the acquisition of knowledge. It will help the students assess their deeper understanding on the unit. It will also show the capability of the students in terms of performance. Thus, the assessment approach used by Mr. Santiago may result in an inaccurate evaluation and will have a negative impact on the students' motivation.
So the purpose of this assessment is to provide students with the opportunity to reflect on their overall learning and experience in this course. Assessments should be used to track students' progress over time. So teachers can and should make adjustments to their teaching as needed to support the students' learning based on their performances. So let's assume Mr. Santiago taught a unit to a class of students and will assess their knowledge of the content with the final test. What should be Mr. Santiago's next steps if all the students ace the test? So what if half of the students do well and the other half fail the assessments? So what happens next should be different for those two situations and all of the other possible outcomes. So now, Mr. Santiago should use assessments frequently to ensure that their instructions will be at the appropriate level for the students in the room. So assessment serves varied purposes, but generally speaking, Mr. Santiago must consider the following. So first is when the student will take the test or assessments. So what, if anything, the teacher will teach before the students takes the assessment? And what will happen if the student scores when they complete the assessments? So generally, Mr. Santiago used a summative assessment. So another important function of summative assessment is to show the teacher whether the students learned what they intended. One possible outcome could be that the teacher learns that the students misunderstood key information when they all miss certain questions on the summative assessment. So this reveals a need to reteach that material before or while moving on to the next units. So another practice that could contribute to the summative assessment feeling more like a celebration is to ask the students to share what else they know about the topic that was not reflected in the assessment questions or prompt.
Stated on the scenario that Mr. Santiago's student was concerned about the validity and reliability of the way Mr. Santiago assessed them. They think it is not enough to show their knowledge. Scenario where Mr. Santiago only assess factual recall, typically done on a paper and pencil test, and only contain one correct answer, neglecting application specifically in performance-based assessment. In a biology class, there was supposedly a laboratory to test the capability of student in application and critical thinking skills. The assessment that Mr. Santiago gave per unit does not align with the objective or learning outcomes of the unit and lesson, specifically on the lab activities such as experiment, laboratory test, and other lessons that they have tackled in the biology. The importance of this application may help the student to determine their learning in terms of application. The authentic assessment gives meaning to the learning. A person's knowledge will be useful if it is applied. Learning takes place if it is done actual, and it will last long to the learner's memory. To improve the effectiveness of assessment in Mr. Santiago biology class, we propose 6 evidence-based recommendations. These suggestions aim to promote higher-order thinking, application, and authentic learning experiences, ultimately enhancing students' preparation for real-world biology applications. First is to diversify question types. Incorporate a range of question types to assess various cognitive skills such as multiple choice questions with higher order thinking, short answer or essay questions, and lab-based assessments or practical exams. Diverse question types cater to different learning styles, promoting inclusive assessment. Second, emphasize application and critical thinking, such as case studies or scenario-based questions. Assess lab skills and hands-on learning. Evaluate lab skills and hands-on learning through lab practicals or competency-based assessments and student design experiments or projects. Direct assessment of lab skills ensures students' proficiency in biological procedures. Fourth, use authentic assessments. Integrate real-world examples and interdisciplinary connections like real-world examples or scenarios. Authentic assessments promote relevance, context, and transfer of learning. Fifth, consider performance tasks for comprehensive assessment such as research papers or presentations and science fair projects or exhibitions. Performance tasks evaluate complex skills such as research, communication, and scientific literacy. Lastly, regular review and revision. Solicit student feedback and align assessments with learning objectives like regularly review assessment effectiveness and revise assessments based on student feedback and learning outcomes. Continuous assessment refinement ensures alignment with learning objectives and promotes student-centered education. By implementing these recommendations, Mr. Santiago